What is up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again, talking college football. It is week 8. We have an amazing Friday night slate, and that is what we are here to talk about. Before we get started, if you like this content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. We're a small channel trying to make it. That helps a ton if you've done any of that stuff. So thank you. And if you have a request, we will be filming the extra games tomorrow morning. So get those in if you have them, and we'll try to get to your game. Last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's dive in. Amazing slate. Louisville, Miami at the top of this Friday night slate. This is a 13.5-point spread in favor of the Hurricanes. It's reached some resistance here. Saw it test 14, come back down. Seems like it's going to settle here. The total is 51. Some money is coming on the under. Mathematically, we show some value in Louisville. Stylistically, narrative-wise, even just looking at these teams, I mean, it's really hard not to favor Miami in this spot. So I disagree with the model just straight away. As far as what these teams have done, Louisville's played the far easier schedule so far. James Madison, they win by 14. That was a close game, closer than the score indicates. Bowling Green and Eastern Kentucky are layups for this team. They beat Pitt by 7 points, and then they lose to Virginia by 3. However, a little bit of back and forth in those games against Pitt. They get a win, but they have a 48% post-game win expectancy. Pitt just couldn't stop shooting themselves in the foot. They almost averaged a full 1.5 yards more per play than Louisville. They just lost the turnover battle 5-1. And Pitt went 2 of 14 on 3rd and 4th downs, while Louisville went 9 of 19. Hard to win like that. And they still almost did. Against Virginia, it's the opposite. Louisville had a 90% post-game win expectancy. They dominated yards per play in this game, but Louisville gave up 2 defensive scores. They had a fumble 6 and a pick 6, and they missed a field goal. It's hard to win like that. So now you're coming off a bye for Louisville, as is Miami. That's what you get with these weekday games. Miami's played way more difficult teams. Beat Notre Dame, beat USF, beat Florida State. Outside of Bethune-Cookman, I mean, this is a challenging schedule for the Hurricanes, and they've answered every single call. For injuries, it's mostly on the Louisville side. They've had some running back problems. Every one of them has been hurt at this point. So hopefully now you can get Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, and Kewan Brown fully healthy. They're not going to have Stanquan Clark at linebacker. Miami has been shockingly healthy this year. They don't have any major injuries. They're actually getting players back like Trader at receiver. We'll start with the Louisville side. Offensively, Miller Moss has been their quarterback. It's been up and down for him. That's kind of how it was with USC, but his completion percentage is 67.5%, 7.6 yards per attempt, 7 big-time throws, 10 turnover-worthy plays, and only 4 of those have been converted to interceptions. Part of the problem is pressure. 13 sacks, it looks bad. What is he supposed to do? The pressure rate is 31%, and that's against the schedule we just laid out. You're playing Miami, man. Miami is on deck. More on that in a second. Before we get there, like the offensive line that's allowing the pressure, they are 105th in pass blocking, 118th in run blocking. They have not played the most difficult schedule of defensive lines. They've been pretty decent. Miami is a different animal, man. Basically, you have Pete Nigra and Lance Robinson above average, but Rashid Miller and Mohamed Musa might be the worst offensive tackle duo in this conference. They are down there, and there's some bad teams in this conference. I like the skill players, man, but honestly, this offensive line has limited Isaac Brown. His yards per carry is 7.3, but if you've watched Louisville play, I'm sure a lot of you have, you see Isaac Brown slamming into the back of his offensive line, 3 yards, 2 yards, 4 yards. And at halftime or in the third quarter, you'll see a stat line that's something like 14 carries for 23 yards, and you're frustrated, pulling your hair out. Then he breaks the long one. The yards per carry, the way it's comprised, it's so many short runs followed by an explosive run. Against Miami, you just really question whether the explosive run gets there. And in the receiving room, this is a quality unit. Chris Bell's going to get drafted. Right now, a lot of places have him as like a top 3 receiver in the class. I don't know about that, but he's looked good, 502 yards. And Colin Lacey's right behind him. So they don't have a wide receiver 3, though. They rotate that position. Tight end's a little bit iffy with like a Jaleel Skinner. But I don't know if that's going to be able to stand up against this defensive line. Miami, they're 3rd in total defense, 2nd in run defense, 3rd in pass rush, 31st in coverage. They've played 2 top 20 offenses, Notre Dame and Florida State. even teams like USF are not bad offenses. Bottom line, Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, I think, are the best edge rushing duo in the country right now. Inside, Ahmad Moten's holding down the interior. It's the back seven you need to beat, but I don't know if they're going to be able to protect long enough to do so. This is the biggest, perhaps so far, at least among ACC conference play, the biggest OL-DL mismatch we've seen this year. The linebackers are a little closer to average. I still think Byzantine has some upside that we haven't seen yet. Keontae Scott's been a difference maker in the secondary, but they have cracks. If you can pass protect long enough, you can throw the ball over Miami in spots. We've seen them tested at times. It's just been inconsistent, and Miami's played well enough offensively where their cracks on defense have not mattered. Now, getting to the Miami side, we mentioned all their wins. The only real concern I have box score-wise with them so far is they just kind of played cowardly in the second half against Florida State. They had 23 yards after that final score they put on the board. Basically, it was a run pass situation where they're punting. I don't know, just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. But at the end of the day, Carson Beck has been awesome with a 73% completion percentage. He only has 2 turnover-worthy plays and 3 interceptions. One of them was not his fault. Credit that to a tipped pass. The big thing, he's only taken 3 sacks. So you have negative plays non-existent in his game, which really helps you sustaining drives. And the offensive line is awesome. This is a top 10 unit. They've not played an elite defensive line like Notre Dame, Florida, Florida State, and USF all kind of sit in that pretty good to good category, not elite. I mean, I don't really know if it matters. Markel Bell and Francis Mauigoa are elite offensive tackles. If you want to beat this team, it's probably inside. Louisville, I'm not sure they have that pressure. We'll talk about them in a second. So right away, good infrastructure, good foundation with the offensive line. Your skill players, Mark Fletcher's at 5.5 yards per carry. He's awesome. You're getting back Jordan Lyle. Maybe you can receive that explosive situational ability from him. Malachi Toney, the freshman's leading the team in receiving. CJ Daniels, the LSU transfer, has been just fine. And then they're rotating a combination of veterans and elite recruits like Joshua Moore, Keelan Marion. These guys don't have to play a full complement of snaps. It's just set up really well for this team. Louisville's defense has been pretty impressive to this point. I would question the offenses they faced. You really have 2 of them that are decent, James Madison, and they have problems throwing the ball, and then Virginia. Virginia's 21st, but you've seen cracks with this team. They allowed 8.8 yards per attempt to the now benched Eli Holstein. For, I guess, to counter that, Chandler Morris was only at 4.8 yards per attempt. But then on the ground, it's weird. Bowling Green hit 6.6 yards per carry. No one else was above 3.5. What you can say is the front 7 looks pretty good on paper. Wesley Bailey, the Rutgers transfer, has been awesome off the edge. Same thing with Clev Lubin from Coastal Carolina. Inside, Rene Conga is awesome, very athletic. Jordan Garrard has been good. At linebacker, TJ Quinn is fine, but I still think you can beat this team over the top. The only secondary piece that's a real difference maker is Antonio Watts. The rest of it is kind of untested at this point, and now you're facing Miami. Could be an absolute, utter disaster. Basically, our model makes this closer to 11, and for me, it's just the difference in level of competition. I'm not sure the model always evaluates that properly, where you have these wide discrepancies. Miami playing a really hard schedule, and Louisville playing a cupcake one. I might play Miami. I'm still leaning this direction. I'm going to see where this comes in closer to Friday night. But honestly, there's a real good chance we end up playing this. The only thing that also kind of leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth is just that second half game plan against Florida State. It doesn't appear like Miami is really putting their foot on the throats of their opponents when they have position to really blow teams out. So we'll see how this goes. Nebraska, Minnesota. Excellent game in the Big Ten. This contest has a 7.5-point spread in favor of Nebraska. The total is 46.5. I think there's a couple angles to this game you can play. I like Minnesota getting the points at home, and I like playing an over in this contest. Pacing is not ideal, but Minnesota's varied their pace wildly this season, largely because of injuries and opponents. Nebraska is pass heavy, and they're around average in pace, but more on that in a second. To get here, Nebraska has lived very dangerously against some not-so-good teams. They beat Cincinnati by 3 points. They had a 37% post-game win expectancy. They lose to Michigan by 3 points, a rightful loss. Then they beat Michigan State 38-27. They win the turnover battle 3-1 in that game, and Michigan State had a punt blocked for a touchdown. I mean, what a disaster that team is right now. And then last week, they beat Maryland by 3 points. I mean, Maryland is not a good team. They're not bad. They're better than I thought for sure. You get Matt Rule coming out after the game saying, we're not a team that loses close games anymore. You shouldn't be in close games against Maryland. You didn't even cover the spread. Like, you're not living up to expectation. That is what it is. That game was very, very gnarly. There were a lot of turnover on downs. Nebraska threw an interception at their own 32 that was a touchdown. I mean, Raiola threw a lot of interceptions in this game, but Maryland almost gave it right back. Like, Nebraska had a really long kick return that almost was a touchdown that set up a short field score. So that game could have gone either way for me. For Minnesota, it does not always look pretty either. They beat Buffalo in week 1, follow that up with a win against FCS Northwestern State, and then they lose to Cal. And they got beat 27-14. It wasn't particularly close. Follow that up with a win against Rutgers. Rutgers got up 14-0 and then collapsed. Rutgers is apparently not a very good team. And since then, they beat Purdue with a 31% post-game win expectancy and got annihilated by Ohio State. Purdue in that game, my goodness, did they beat themselves. They had a running back throw an interception in that game. They also missed a field goal, threw a pick six, and had a turnover on down at the Minnesota 7. I mean, what a disaster Purdue was. They just gave that game away. Anyway, in this contest, for injuries, Marquez Watson-Trent at linebacker played limited snaps last week. I don't know what the deal is there. Perhaps he is injured. Malcolm Hartog's been out for a while at defensive back. For Minnesota, Maverick Baranowski at linebacker got banged up, but I think he's okay. Aiden Gooseby missed the game at defensive back. So the quarterback position, we got to start with Dylan Raiola. I've been disappointed. I won't lie to you. It's honestly just the sacks with him. When you look at the efficiency, the passing's not bad. 73% completion, 8.4 yards per attempt. He's pushing the ball downfield more this year. Only 6 turnover-worthy plays being converted at a high rate, five interceptions. That'll come down. But 17 sacks. That's a 31% pressure to sack ratio. That's just astronomical. He has no feel in the pocket. He holds the ball too long. I don't know what to say, man. Like, you can't have a time to throw this long, even with a pretty decent offensive line. They're 6th in pass blocking, 33rd in run blocking. And they played an average group of defensive lines. Like Cincinnati did it, Corleone in that game. Michigan and Maryland are pretty decent. The one thing that they did change this last week was they benched Teddy Prohaska, and that appears to be a good change. Elijah Pritchett had a good showing in his stead. Otherwise, Justin Evans is their best blocker, research center. It's been a pretty good unit. And the skill players are upgraded compared to last year. Emmett Johnson's doing his thing, 6.2 yards per carry for him. He's been a workhorse. Messiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney, and Dane Key have been an upgrade on last year's unit, especially Hunter's at 415 yards. Key, think you can buy low a little on him, 269. Better days should be ahead. And Barney's living up to his recruitment finally. So it's a good offense. This offense can definitely score. And then on defense for Minnesota, they're 69th, 105th against the run, 103rd in pass rush, 16th in coverage. They have played 2 top 10 offenses, and they haven't really played an offense lower than Cal. So it's been a tough going for them. Julian Sand was at 12.2 yards per attempt, pretty banged up secondary there. They allowed 7.3 yards per attempt to Ethan Kaliak-Manis and Rutgers. They have allowed some production on the ground. Purdue got them for 6.3 yards per carry. I will say, outside of Ohio State, no one else has been above 3.5. And in the front 7, Maverick Baranowski, Devin Williams at linebacker, they've been great. Anthony Smith off the edge is a very talented player. But they need more than one good defensive lineman. The rest of them have been largely average. And the secondary has shown cracks. You've played Kerry Brown and Coy Parrish. They've been great. But the other safety position, Aiden Gooseby and Darius Green, depending on who's healthy, it's been a real crack for this team. So I think Nebraska will be able to exploit this. They should be able to pass protect long enough if you dedicate extra resources to Anthony Smith. And then you should be able to throw the ball at least a little bit on this defense because of the injuries. But honestly, you could run the ball too with Emmett Johnson. On the Minnesota side, it's been up and down with Drake Lindsey. He has a 60% completion percentage, 5 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays. He's taken 8 sacks, which somehow that's better than Raiola by a lot. It's less than 50% of the sacks Raiola's taken. Now, Minnesota is kind of limited at receivers, so I'm not surprised to see the passing stats a little down. Lameek Brockington, Javon Tracy, Jalen Smith, these are just low-level transfers or recruits that are playing. I'm surprised the receiving still comes in 33rd in efficiency, probably some of that having to do with their tight ends. But Darius Taylor's back. Minnesota's still 29th in rushing. Darius Taylor looks bad on paper because he got hurt in that Northwestern State game. So we've only really seen him play a couple games, and one of them was Ohio State. What do you want him to do? We know he's an extremely talented player, so I think better days are ahead for Taylor. And the offensive line's been better than expected for Minnesota. Outside of Ohio State, they have played some pretty easy defensive lines, so that needs to be noted. But at the same time, they only allowed 7 pressures to Ohio State. Kind of a vanilla defensive game plan for Ohio State as they were beating Minnesota to a pulp. But it's all that is context that's important, but they still did a good job. Nathan Roy and Greg Johnson have been solid. There's one weak link with Minnesota's offensive line, that is Marcellus Marshall. I wish they would just take a look at someone else. He has been an utter disaster. Nebraska's defense. They've only played one top 50 offense this year, so take everything with a grain of salt. That was Cincinnati, who had a really weird game. Brennan Sorsby threw for 2.8 yards per attempt, but they ran for 8 yards per carry. I don't know what to make of that. From there, the signal colors they faced, at least in Big Ten play, Bryce Underwood, Aiden Childs, Malik Washington, all of them are challenged to some degree. So I'm not really buying the 44th ranked pass coverage unit. The pass rush is 94th overall. Like Javin Wright has been good. Williams Winery has been fine on the edge. Vincent Shavers. They have cracks at a lot of different areas of the defense. So I don't even know if there's a big edge in this defensive matchup. I think Nebraska probably a little better than Minnesota, but you could argue that the other direction as well. And basically, edges in this game, we have these teams power rated a little closer than the touchdown and a half, 7.5 point. That was a weird way to say that. 7.5 point spread would indicate. I also played an over, and I think 46.5 is fine. Both these teams, cracks on defense and offenses that can score, especially Nebraska when Rail is not taking sacks. So that is where we will go. San Jose State, Utah State. Mountain West game I'm very excited for, actually. Utah State, you can still find -3s. They're juiced. You're going to find 3.5 closer to even money. So we put 3.5 on the screen. Total 63.5. Apparently, Walker Eget and Danny Scudero are both banged up in this game. I don't think either are in danger of missing, just a report from the beat writer. So know that first and foremost. One thing we do know, they're down to third-string running backs. Floyd Chalk and Jabari Bates not going to play. Utah State's actually looking like a healthier team, which is surprising because Bryson Barnes was banged up and didn't play full snaps against Hawaii. Jake Eichhorn on the offensive line's been gone. And Courage Ugo at defensive back, it looks like he might have been benched. Maybe someone in the comments can tell me why he was so limited, but anyway, don't think it matters. For resumes, San Jose State has kind of had it rough. They lose to Central Michigan in their opener, get crushed by Texas, then they get a win against FCS Idaho State by 3 points. Follow that up with a loss to Stanford, beat New Mexico by 7, and then lose to Wyoming last week. So it's all over the map for this team, and it's largely been bad. For Utah State, kind of a similar body of work. They beat UTEP. That is what it is. And they beat Air Force in week 3. But in between that, they lose to Texas A&M and Vanderbilt. Impossible tasks. Last week, they lose to Hawaii. And Bryson Barnes didn't play the whole game. But this was a complete disaster for this team. Utah State had a turnover on downs at the Hawaii 37. They fumbled at their own 36. That was an immediate Hawaii touchdown. It was probably a little closer than the score indicates. A lot of those points for Hawaii came in the second half and the fourth quarter, but still don't want to be losing there. As far as the quarterback position, San Jose State's Walker Eget's been up and down. 61% completion, 7.7 yards per attempt. He has 17 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays. Somehow he's only taken 6 sacks, but his wide receivers do have an 8.5% drop rate. This is a limited skill position group. Now that you have moved on from Bates and Chalk, Steve Chavez Soto and Lamar Ratcliffe are splitting the backfield. Neither of them has been above 3.7 yards per carry. At wide receiver, you've got Danny Scudero. He has 845 yards. I don't understand how teams just don't double him at this point. They don't have anything else. Kyrie Scholes and Leland Smith haven't done much. They just throw to Scudero almost every single play. His target numbers are astronomical. He nearly has 1,000 yards already. It's crazy. And it's weird that they've had some success with this style of offense with one player because the infrastructure is bad. The offensive line is maybe the worst in football. You could argue that. Only Tyler Chen has been decent on this unit. Nate Hale and Passetti Luapaho have been downright nuclear disasters at tackle. They're 135th in pass blocking, 113th in run blocking. This was one of the worst offensive lines coming into the country. So now you're facing Utah State, whose defense is a little below average, but we mentioned the two SEC opponents. Impossible tasks there. Then they face the triple option, which is always a weird data point to look at. They held that team to 4.4 yards per carry, which seems pretty good, actually. Hawaii is probably the most reasonable data point to look at, considering they're not SEC or triple option. 7.6 yards per attempt to Micah Alejado, 5.2 yards per carry. They're not even a good data point because they run that run and shoot offense. So even they're a little weird. And Alejado is a very good mobile signal caller. Honestly, I think the defense has room to improve against the weaker Mountain West teams they're going to face this year. They have two elite safeties, Noah Avenger and John Miller. And still, even with those guys, I think the secondary is more cracks on paper than the front seven. So it's not the best matchup against San Jose. But I do think this is a weaker offense than even what Utah State has seen a lot of the time this year. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bryson Barnes looks like he's ready to go despite being banged up. He's important. 63.5% completion for him, 8.4 yards per attempt, 7 big-time throws, 7 turnover-worthy plays. He's taken 19 sacks on a 37% pressure rate. Part of that, the offensive line's fault. Part of that, his pressure-to-sack ratio is too high at 24%. But still, I mean, you played A&M, you played Vanderbilt. They're still 69th and they're 116th in pass blocking, 94th in run blocking. Even you look at the G5 teams like UTEP, Hawaii, and Air Force have decent defensive lines. They have 2 weak links, I think. J.R. Sia, Tavo Matu Apawaka. We never thought this was a good offensive line, expected them to come in below average. They've kind of been a little worse than that, but in this game, probably some room for improvement. As far as skill players go, Miles Davis and Javen Jacobs just fine. 6.4 yards per carry, 5.9. It's a good rushing tandem. Barnes provides some spark via his legs on the ground, too. The receivers are better than you might think. Braden Pagan and Brady Boyd. Boyd's a Texas A&M transfer, both above 350 yards. Even Brock Lane at tight end provides something there. So it's a pretty good unit, and I do not buy San Jose State's defense. They've played one top 50 offense. That was Texas. They've allowed at least 7.8 yards per attempt to all FBS opponents, and some of them have been way better than that. And they've allowed even 7.3 yards per attempt to Idaho. They're a little better on the ground, but teams just haven't needed to do that. This team is 129th in coverage. You throw the ball right over the top of them, and you're just fine. On paper, the best players for the defense are Gafa Faga at defensive tackle and Noah McNeil Franklin at linebacker. I'm not even sure the defensive line is good. It's just the secondary is so bad. All you have to do is throw the ball right over the top. And Utah State certainly willing to oblige that. 37th in pass rate, 13th in pace. We like Utah State. I took a 3. It's a little juice, so it's kind of an effective 3.5. I would try to get that point if you can, half point, I should say. But if you end up with a 3.5, I think it's all right there. San Jose State's a team we're looking to fade. Utah State, with that schedule they played, a team more in that buy range. Last up, we go to the ACC. It is North Carolina taking on Cal. A 10-point spread in favor of Cal. Total in the game is 47.5. North Carolina is a disaster. Bill Belichick, already rumors about the buyout stuff. They have 2 wins. They beat a horrible Charlotte and FCS Richmond. They've lost by blowout to TCU, blowout to UCF, blowout to Clemson. I don't know what to make of this team. I think they're better than their record indicates, but I don't know if they're ever going to put that on the field. Cal, meanwhile, has been all over the board. Beat Oregon State. It's not saying a lot, nor is their win over Texas Southern. Minnesota is a great win. I don't know how to explain that contest because the following week they go out and they lose. They get shut out by San Diego State. Follow that up with a win over Boston College, who very well might be the worst team in the ACC, and Stanford's in this conference. But Boston College, they're taking the cake so far. And then they get blown out by Georgia Tech. So Cal does not look great on paper. Their good wins are aging poorly. Their losses making Cal look even worse. For injuries, there's a lot of them for North Carolina. Gio Lopez probably back this week. I don't know if it matters. Chris Culliver at receiver. Aiden Banfield and William Boone on the offensive line. For Cal, Ryan McCullough at edge and Isaiah Crosby at safety are out for the year. They've also had Braden Miller and Nick Morrow injured on the offensive line. For Gio Lopez, has been a disaster. 63% completion, 6.4 yards per attempt, only 3 turnover-worthy plays, but they've all been converted. 6 sacks. The pressure rate's high, not because the O-line is struggling, because he's holding the ball for way too long. It's not just him, though. The drop rate is 10.5%. And when Max Johnson came in, I thought he might be some sort of like stabilizing factor. He wasn't any better. So whoever plays quarterback for UNC is going to struggle, I would guess. The offensive line's actually pretty good for this team. They're 46th in pass blocking, 86th in run blocking. They played a couple good defensive lines, too, with UCF and Clemson. Pretty good results in those contests. But they battled injuries. You have 4 starters coming in above average, Chad Lindbergh being their best. Austin Blaske is the only one below average, but he's also been banged up. They've played a lot of different offensive line combos because of that injury situation, so maybe they're a little better coming out of the bye. And the offensive line, you kind of need it because there's just not many difference makers at skill players. They've already used 4 different running backs. The only one who's above 69 yards is Damon June, 7 yards per carry for him, so maybe he's a spark. Everyone's favorite player, Gauss, was absolutely atrocious when he had to play earlier this season. So, I mean, you're 126th in rushing efficiency. Just use June more. Like, see if you can't turn that small sample efficiency into something more. I don't know what to tell you. The Freddie Kitchens offense has been a mess. At receiver, Jordan Shipp has 234 yards. He's a good recruit, so it's nice to see something out of him, but no one else has more than 111. I don't know. There's room for some growth here. There's room for some negative regression on the offensive line, I suppose. It's just kind of an overall not a very good team. You don't need me to tell you that. So, defensively, Cal has been a weird team. They're 90th overall. Somehow their rushing efficiency, defensively that is 135th, and they're 10th in coverage. They have played some good offenses. They've still allowed production through the air, even with that coverage ranking. Darian Mensah, 8.8 yards per attempt. Jaden Denegal, 10.5. And then the guys they stopped, Dylan Lonergan from Boston College, Drake Lindsey from Minnesota, the redshirt freshman, and Malik Murphy. Do you buy that 10th coverage ranking, stopping those QBs, and then getting burned by Mensah and Denegal? Because I do not. And then on the ground, they allowed 8.5 yards per carry to Boston College, 4.8 to Duke, and the other teams chose to throw. I mean, I think Hezekiah Massis and Brent Austin have been good, but probably one of their best secondary players, Crosby's out for the year. Their best linebacker's out from the year. Cade Uluave has been horrible at linebacker, having to play more now that McCulloch is out. The defensive line is certainly not ideal. I think UNC can move the ball if they can have, I don't know, just do something on offense. Like, I don't know, let's run some motions, disguise something, like get Gio Lopez on the run. Who knows? They should be able to move the ball. Who knows if they will? For Cal, Jerron Kiawe Sagopatele has been fine. He lives dangerously, and you see that in the box score. Sometimes it looks phenomenal. The 11 big-time throws are great, and then other contests it looks horrific with the 10 turnover-worthy plays. He'll also take sacks. He has 13 of those. The pressure-to-sack ratio of 18.5% is a little bit high. It's around average, so nothing to be afraid of there. But he's not getting a ton of help. Receivers have a 9% drop rate. The pressure rate's 32% for this guy. He's a freshman as well. So, I mean, the mistakes are going to come. The receivers will drop passes, the sacks will come, and the turnover-worthy plays come. The offensive line is 111th in run blocking, 56th in pass blocking, and they have not faced a pass rush ranked higher than 64. So I think there is room for considerable negative regression with this unit. And the skill players, they had the mass exodus of running backs coming into the season. That was a power struggle between Brian Harsin and the players. Harsin lost. Now you have Kendrick Raphael dominating the backfield because you don't have anyone else, but he's not been good. 4.5 yards per carry. They're 107th in rushing. The receiving room, Tron Grizel is 400 yards, but the rest of it is just low level. DeJesus is a G5 transfer. Tight end Mason Minnie's a FCS transfer. They just don't have a lot of talent. So Sagopatele doesn't have much to work with. And then North Carolina's defense, you can say a lot of things about this team. You can say that their defense is their best unit. I don't know if that's a feather in their cap or it's more just you're not good overall. Something has to be the best. They have only played one offense in the top 65. That was TCU. They gave up 7.7 yards per attempt to Josh Hoover. They most recently allowed Cade Klubnik to 10.2 yards per attempt. They've done a good job on defense against the run, though. TCU is the only team above 4.2 yards per carry. I will say the opponents have not been ideal, but the front seven's been pretty good. Andrew Simpson at linebacker, Melkart Abu Jaoud on the edge. They're stronger in the front, and their weaker position is the secondary. Marcus Allen's been a mess. Will Hardy's been a mess. Caleb Cost has been as well, but it looks like there's kind of soft benching him. So perhaps you just see different complexion of the secondary, different players, and maybe that helps them. I don't really know. But overall, I think there are edges North Carolina's direction. The scar tissue leads me away from this, just staying away, I should say. You could bet the under, I think. We do show some value on this, closer to 43, but don't make it anything that's a lock to play or something I'm rushing to the window to get. I will potentially play North Carolina in this spot. They are going across the country, but you're off the bye, so some of that travel stuff doesn't quite mean as much. I don't know, man. I don't know if I can get there with a game this greasy, and I'm a person that loves grease more than anything on this planet. We'll wait and see, but that's where the week stands. Thank you guys for watching. If you have a request for tomorrow, please leave it. Otherwise, we'll be back again soon talking more college football. But until then, good luck. Thank you guys for watching.